everyone, welcome to another Wellness Wednesday. I'm Sydney,
All right, I'm Mateo.
and today we're going to be talking about financial literacy. And we wanted to talk about this because a lot of times the cause of financial stress is low levels of literacy, which just results in a lot of poor behaviors when it comes to personal finances. So, yeah, today we'll be talking about our own personal experiences with that. So, Mateo, would you like to get us started?
Yeah, I'd love to. So for me, financial literacy has taken a while for me to kind of get around. But I've kind of been working with money for a little bit. I've had a job since I was like 14 years old, and the whole time I was going to school while also doing some kind of sport or some kind of other thing. So learning how to budget your time, especially when it comes to your money, is important. Like my freshman year of college was the first time that hadn't worked in about 6 years, so it was really weird for me. And I only got like a few $100s a month from like home, and it was really difficult balancing that stuff out. And I really didn't have a lot of education on how to handle my money or pay my bills. I kind of just used it while I was there. Um, and learning how to spread it out, how to say, okay, this is money for that I have for bills. This is money that I have for, I just send home to family. This is my. It really actually helped me a lot to realize how much I actually have left to spend freely instead of just spending it how I wanted to. And honestly, I think a part of that was trying to get around. I always jokingly call it like an ADHD tax, but it really is true. Like trying to account for those impulse buys you're going to have at some point. Like you're gonna have a time where, oh yeah, I want that, because I have a lot of like random stuff in my house, like some Rubik's cubes and little hobbies that I just kind of picked up, and those cost money. But I've learned to budget for those kind of weird moments of, oh, this looks interesting, I'm gonna buy it. But that also comes to like just making sure how much is coming in, how much is supposed to be going out, and how much you can kind of keep. For me, it helps me just to write it down every day before payday. I'll have an idea of what I'm going to earn based on the hours that I worked, and I'll be able to, break everything down to its smallest kind of place so that every dollar is accounted for in some kind of way. That way, you're not just like having money left over. Because for the most part, when you're young and you're in your 20s and you have $100, $200 in your bank account, you're gonna want to go out and eat. You're gonna want to go do stuff with your friends, and it can be kind of difficult because then next week you're broke, but payday isn't for another 4 days. So learning how to just make sure you have money to last you as you're kind of continuing through life, and kind of using it to sustain your daily life and choosing the important things to worry about is important. Because for the most part, a lot of people, especially like freshmen, sophomores, they're just going to want to go eat out every night. And if they don't have a meal ticket, they're going to be spending a lot of money. So it's important to just really establish how you're going to get your money, where it's coming from, and also knowing how to spend it effectively for your needs, not just like what's fun. But yeah, like I had to like learn all that stuff through just kind of learning it the hard way in college, of just being broke a lot. And so that's why like I always try to caution just being careful, kind of taking time to know what you're getting, because there's been a lot of times even nowadays where I'll find myself still broke, you know. Like I'm like, man, like like 2 or 3 more days to like to like payday, and it's like I gotta figure it out. But that honestly comes from just understanding how much you have, what you can spend. And it does take a little bit of like, it feels a little bit nervous or like restrictive at first, but like in the long run, it's important to have your own money, especially because it's kind of your first time growing up and being an adult. And that's when it's a good time for you to just kind of like try things out and figure out what works for you, what kind of budget works for you, how much your budget has to work, with your life, and who needs money from your family. That's the thing for I have to account for all the time too. So other than that, I think just having a level of just like reality about your money too. Like at least for me, when I grew up kind of a little bit like broker than a lot of people did. So when I had $200 in my pocket, that was a lot of money to me. And but in reality, as you kind of grow into the adult, it's like in terms of spending money and taking care of yourself, that's actually not that amount, and that can be gone in 30 minutes if you're paying your own bills and doing that kind of stuff. So having the reality of like whenever you do make a certain amount of money, that it's meant for you to do things you're committed towards is important, because a lot of the time you could just get the money and you want to spend it on you know going out with your friends and things like that. So it's important just to have a real kind of just honesty about how much money you have too, instead of just like wanting to have more, so then you're gonna have more in your head. So that's just a couple tips that I had. Just kind of like some things that I've kind of had to work around in my time at APU and trying to like master it, and definitely stuff that I wish like someone had told me to do earlier because I was just kind of just doing it. So those are a couple things that I thought would help.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing. I think for me, I had a little bit of a different experience when it comes to financial literacy, I think, because growing up, I was fortunate enough to not have to work throughout high school unless I wanted to, but I didn't have the time and I just didn't want to when I was in high school. And so I was lucky enough for that. And also being like Chinese, we get like red envelopes and stuff for like Chinese New Year, for like birthdays and stuff. So that's honestly what I lived off of for like all of high school, and a little into college, because my first year of college, I was actually at a school in Japan. And so that was like the first time I was like away from family and everything. And I really had to um, learn how to manage my money there, especially because I couldn't necessarily get a job while I was there because that was something that was really hard given that I don't speak Japanese, or I didn't, and I still don't speak it very well. And so that was just something that was a little bit difficult. But I really had to, yeah, just, but it wasn't as much as like trying to like budget out my money in terms of like having to pay bills or anything. It was just more so making sure that I had money that so that I could buy food, and then also for impulse buys, because there's just, that's just something that I also kind of do a lot, is like you just see something really cool and you want it and you're like, oh, like, do I have the money? Yeah. um and then I've had like a couple of jobs here and there since then, but I really started working for the first time this year, more full time, which has been the first time I've had somewhat of a steady income, and that's been like a really honestly difficult thing for me to balance, because I've never had a steady flow of income, but I also don't have things that I need to pay for necessarily. And so a lot of it is me just learning to um, put money away and to save that money for whatever I may need it for in the future. So something that I've been doing recently is just with the money that I get, every time I get paid, I try to save about like half of it just for whatever, so that I'm not like stressed if I do end up broke and I need some money, I have some slight cushion for myself. Um, but yeah, I think that's just been something really interesting for me to learn. I'm honestly still learning more how to manage my money, which is something that I would love to become better at. But yeah, so that's where I'm at. And it's been helpful to hear what you've had to share, Mateo, because it's, honestly, that's something I've been told before too, is to kind of like write down, like kind of like to physically just kind of budget out your money. And I think about that every time I get paid, but it's just not something that I do. And I really think it's something I should start doing. But yeah, so thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and I like what you said about saying like putting away half of your money, especially if you don't have anything to pay for. Because like for me, definitely like I can get stressed out with that. That the only money that I have in my checking account is what's to my name, kind of thing. And I know I for me like I always feel less stressed out whenever I have more money. I like to just make sure that I have something to feel a little bit safer. So like making sure that you are putting away like what my Thea always recommended to me was always about 10% of your check anytime you get something, anytime you make any kind of money, it should always go away to your savings. Just as soon as you do, just kind of have it set where it just puts it out there automatically whenever you do get paid. And at first I was like, man, that's kind of like, like what if I need that money? But honestly, like starting to do it, and I started doing it like 6 months ago, and I have a good amount of money just kind of put away now where it feels a little bit better. And definitely like especially like as college, we often don't realize it because it's very kind of a very bubbly kind of lifestyle you live, but it really is your first few years of being an adult, and it really is your chance to figure out what works for you before you have to go out there and still do stuff. At least where we live now, you have a house that you can just pay for the you know tuition. You pay into your tuition, your rent's paid, so you have to worry about paying rent every month. But there's gonna be time where you're having to do that, and accounting for that stuff and having the money saved up is really important because I think like it's harder to learn them when you're actually trying to do it and it matters. It's always good to learn something before you have to. And I think definitely that helps that transition because a lot of people, like we're in our senior year right now, and it can be kind of scary. You're like, man, you have to go like be like a real adult now, and like using that phrasing definitely shows that when we're here, we're still trying to figure things out. So it can feel like you're just kind of throwing things against a wall, or you're trying to see what works. But honestly, that does come to like your situation too. Like obviously, you can see like me and Sid's just like situation is a lot different, even based on just two people. So your own story and how you want to budget your money is going to apply to what your needs are. And I think that's the most helpful thing when you're trying to learn financial literacy is understanding what your personal needs are in terms of finances. Like for me, I have to pay bills to like my mom, and like I have to pay a little bit of money to like my aunt to like for my savings and all that stuff. But also, I like for the most part, like I don't have to pay a car payment because it's taken out of a different account. So I have an extra couple $100 that I shouldn't have. So I definitely find a way to use it where in a way, but like but honestly, it just comes with just understanding where you're coming from, where your position is. And I think that's good for like where you're going to go next. you know is if you understand how much money you're making, how much money you need, then when you see opportunities to make more money or to a job opportunity comes around for you, you have an understanding of what that can actually bring into your life. So definitely for me, that's just kind of some tips that I had. But honestly, in terms of like some other aspects of it, I think that to me, it helps me reduce my stress to have a lot more money, or at least have my money figured out, because it can be something that's very um, abstract, with your money, the way that it's supposed to work out, or the way that it's supposed to do it. That you can often just say you want to do something with your money, but then it doesn't always happen that way. So, you know, it does take a lot of bit of like understanding where you're at and what you need to do for yourself. Um, a lot of people who feel stressed out about money, it's usually one or two ways: either they don't have enough, or they lost some that they did have. And that losing part does happen to have stuff that you have to, you have to like see what you have to pay out, see what you can keep. And learning that skill is actually really helpful for me in life too, because now I look at some situations the same way I look at my money situation, where it's like, okay, how much do I actually have to give, and how much do I actually have to keep? So that kind of mentality is really helpful for my life, just kind of measuring out stress and trying to measure things, as knowing that everything's going to have its own little portion for everything else.
Yeah, I really like that, how that your mentality towards like managing money has like gone into your mentality towards like, yeah, especially things like how much you have to give to other people, because I feel like that's not related to what we're talking about, but I think that's something I also struggle with a lot, is just like people asking me to do things and always just saying yes, even if sometimes like I absolutely feel like I am so tired, I can't possibly do another thing, but like still saying yes. And I think that's honestly a really cool thing to realize, is that how your approach towards financial literacy has like kind of just poured over into other aspects of your life, which honestly I kind of hope for myself too, because I think that's just something that I really also want to work on, is just becoming better at knowing when to say no, and knowing just how much I have left to give to other people.
Yeah. Do you have any like funny like money stories though? Like, have you ever like won some money, and like have you ever like won like a lifetime supply of something, or some kind of like little money gift that you ever had, where you kind of say, all right, we're gonna ball tonight? And I think it's always a funny feeling whenever that happens. Like for me, like it's always like with senior coming up. Like my last time I graduated high school, like I had a bunch of graduation money, and that definitely helped me out to get through the first couple years of college. But and now I'm looking forward to it now, where it's it is kind of like, it's funny to not treat money as it's a super serious thing. But
Mhm.
there are gonna be times too when you might want to just have some fun. And I think that is important, especially when you're in these times where you have a little bit of a safety net underneath you. Is to always, if you're ever wanting to do something that you feel is like something that's going to be good for you, that can also be a form of just self-care, is spending money on yourself. So it really just depends too. Like sometimes it's like, do you need to spend that money in terms of like, spending it for other people, like hang out with other people, or like for me, I know I have no, like for me, I like to spend money like for me, like with my haircuts or clothes, things like that, because those things help me out, make me feel better. But obviously, like if there's people like, oh, we're gonna go out to dinner tonight, we're gonna go to Applebee's, it's like I don't really have like 30-40 bucks to spend on dinner tonight. I'm cool, But like for the most part, it's always like having to make those in the moment decisions of like, oh, I don't really want to spend that much money, or oh, you can do it. And that really shows you where your priorities are too when you kind of make it off of instinct or impulse, you know. So yeah, I definitely know like if I don't really feel like going out, I probably shouldn't, for that base reason. I'm like, I probably just I'm stressing out because I don't have a lot of money, and so it's always good to like have those kind of moments where you are, you balance between going out, having fun, and also kind of like, playing it back. Because I know for me, like especially the last couple weeks of the semester was funny too, because like, everyone's always high on their meal points they have left, and then people just spend it. They just like, oh, I want to spend money, and that's how people use their money too. Because you think about like meal points are a form of money that you've already paid for. Your parents already just put that money onto your account, but since it's not represented in real dollars, we often don't really see it that way, and that's why people are a lot easier to spend $300 on someone else for food, because it's like, why not? It's already paid for. They're gonna go away anyways. So that those are those kind of moments of where like you see people just kind of willing to just spend a lot of quote unquote money for their own kind of just they want to help people. So that's something that I had to learn too, was to be more loose with it in terms of like making sure other people will have some help too. Like I know for me that in terms of like kind of your personal needs, I always have to have money to help someone like eat if we're ever going out to eat and they don't have a lot. Like I've never been the kind of person to like let somebody eat or let somebody not eat when I'm eating in front of them. Like I'm gonna give you some off my plate. I'm gonna get your own. And like those are some things that I've had to work on, like not doing as much, because I used to just pay for my friends, even if I wasn't all that together financially. I was gonna make sure everyone ate, and I had to learn. I'm like, man, like I don't have a lot of money left over. So balancing your money also has a social aspect. There's also some things that people are gonna ask you for a little bit of yours, or people are gonna ask you for something, and you got to be ready to like know whether or not you're in the position to give it or not. Because I know for me, like I've had people like, hey man, like, you have like $20, I'll get back to you on Friday. I'm like, sure, man. And like I never saw that $20 again. But and it hurt me later on because I might need that $20 for gas or something like that. But having those moments of like, man, like I'm like I've had a lot of those moments where I'm broke and I have no ideas, like no idea why, and I gotta like go back like 2 weeks in time and find every time that I spent money. So it is always important to just like make sure you're keeping track as you're going through life too. And to me, it's a lot of stress off of your shoulders when you're just informed about your resources and what you have, and then you see what happens next.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to go back to what you were saying about like dining points and things like that. Like I think it just reminded me of like one time I just heard someone talking about like credit cards and stuff and how like apparently there's like a good amount of the population that doesn't realize that like you gotta pay that back. And so just I want to put that out there in case there's anyone who doesn't know yet. And it's okay if you don't know, but like if you have a credit card, you have a certain amount of credit that you can use to buy things, but then you eventually have to pay it back. Versus like if you have a debit card, you can put money into an account and that's what you're spending. You're spending like the money that's in that account and you don't have to repay that because you already put money into the account. But that was just something real quick that I wanted to put out there in case people don't know.
Now, honestly, credit cards really freaked me out too. Like when I first got one, I didn't want one at first. I was like, it doesn't make any sense. Like it's not real money. Like how do I spend it? And I totally 100% get it because I had it for like a couple months and I was good on it, but now I got a couple $100 that are just kind of sitting there that I haven't paid off yet that I probably should. And honestly, it's hilarious just trying to like figure out how to use it, because those are things that like culturally I wasn't raised to know about. Financial literacy to me does have a little bit of a culture aspect where some people aren't really educated in how to spend their money. That's why, like, for me growing up around people who were in the same situation as us, or a little bit broker, and they had like 2 or 3 cars, and I'm like, why do y'all have 2 or 3 cars, dude? Like we're eating hot dogs and eggs every day at house. And it really is because like a lot of people don't often realize like what's important about money is how you use it and how you use it to move forward and not just improve what you have. Because for me, like I grew up around a lot of people who like spent their money in trying to look richer than they actually were. And then when like 2008 came around and the housing crash came, a lot of people had to sell those cars, and a lot of people had to sell those extra things. I was like, that's because you shouldn't have been having them bought those. But honestly, it is just having that culture aspect of like realizing when you were, what position you're at when you were raised. Like for me, I know that I was definitely brought up to know how to make money. I knew how to hustle. I knew how to make sure that I had my stuff and take care of things and self-regulate, but I didn't know how to create a long-lasting savings thing, because I never had that before. I was kind of just like always just doing my own thing, living with what I had. So like trying to, like figure out too what your culture has informed about you for financial literacy is important. Because like on my other side, like on my dad's side, Filipinos are very money savvy. They know how to work with money. They know where to send it. They know what to do with businesses wise, and and they're very educated in it. But for me, I had to like go and learn from them. Whenever I visit, I'm like, oh, how do you do this? Because for me, I was just kind of like, I don't know how to do it, and that's because I just never took on the responsibility. So a part of that is too is like embracing your own situation, especially with your money, and kind of figuring those things out feels like it's a lot, but at the end of the day, once you budget and once you have to take that moment of like, all right, what do I have? What do I, what can I do here? It actually is really important. But honestly, I think we did hit our 20-minute mark today, so that's all the time that we have. But thank you guys so much for showing up. We just want to have a quick little conversation about how to do financial literacy. But yeah, me and Sydney want to thank you for your time. Thank you guys for coming. Always, always, always just make sure you count your money, count your dollars, and count your situation too. So thank you guys. Happy Wellness Wednesday and have a good day. Thank you.
Yeah.